Hello there guys, you're listening to Ebird Online and I'm back with another review. So today we're going to do something a little bit different and we're going to be talking about one of our 90-day fiancé couples, Yara and Jovi. And I've decided to analyse this couple argument by argument. So Jovi is 29 and he's from New Orleans, and Yara is 25 and she's from where else? The Ukraine. And the pair met via a travel app whilst travelling. The romance blossomed, and when Jovi popped the question, Yara was quick to say yes. And guys, even though I think this couple are quite well suited and quite a good match, Jovi's friends and family beg to differ. And it would seem that Jovi has a well-deserved reputation as party boy extraordinaire. Apparently he likes a stripper or three, and Yara is apparently his first serious relationship. And some of the arguments they've had thus far have been legendary. Jovi never really has to say I'm sorry, because Yara goes out of her way to ensure he is. And Yara's as hard work as she is good looking. And I gotta say, she's equal parts Pornhub and Painhub. So we'll take the arguments tiff by tiff and do what we do best, overanalyze them. And then at the end of the video I'm going to go over what I think about Sara the Supergrass. If you're listening, Sara, you might want to close your ears. Sara, it seems, is a person with zero endearing qualities. She's a cold and duplicitous sly creature and an empty human being. And that's the Ebird being extremely charitable. If you're new here, welcome, and please consider subscribing to my channel so you don't miss any of my fantastic reviews. And thank you to all of you guys who have been supporting me for the past 18 months, it's very much appreciated. And also, if you enjoy the video, please don't forget to smash the like button, it does make a difference to the placing of my video in the webosphere. Right, so without further ado, I give you Jovi and Yara. Right, so the first argument between this couple was, surprise surprise, at the airport when Yara got off the plane. And I'm calling this argument Flight of Fancy. So basically Yara got off the plane and she was absolutely apoplectic with rage, because apparently Jovi had booked her onto a 30-hour flight. 30 hours? Was it via Mars, Jovi? Did you book her onto Amelia Earhart's Canary? 30 hours? I thought Kiev to New Orleans, that can't be any more than like a 12-14 hour flight. But instead of just putting it in the bank for later, she decided to get it all off her chest there and then. And so she started bitching straight away, and I've got to admit it came off as super ungrateful. After all, Jovi had booked and paid for the flight, what's the big deal? And I think there were two strands to her irritation. Firstly, I think it's because she didn't know, but that's your fault, Yara. You should have looked at the ticket before you got on the flight. And I think the second thing was she kind of knew that he was penny pinching a bit, but how much cheaper was it via Mars? Let's see. So I put in a search for flights from Ukraine to New Orleans, and I discovered that the absolutely fastest flight is 18 hours. So, I don't know, that was £612. But when I put in the search for the cheapest flight, which was £100 less, it was 33 hours. So we know what Jovi did. He saved himself $120 and made poor Yara sit on a plane for another 12 to 14 hours. And as someone who doesn't like flying, I kind of feel her pain, but I think it was a little bit petty for the first interaction that you have after not seeing this person for many months was a moan. And the second thing is, I remember Jovi actually saying he always gets great deals to go and travel somewhere, and he always looks for cheap flights. So I think that's what he does for himself as well. And let's not forget he paid for the whole of the K1 visa process and all of their holidays. So if he's trying to economise here and there, so be it. And so on to argument number 2, which I'm calling Bridal Bust Up. And that was an argument between Jovi, Jovi's mum, and Yara about the location of the wedding. So after they'd been there a couple of days, Jovi decided, let's go over and meet my mum. And his mum lives about an hour away, so they were going to go and stay overnight. And firstly, Yara said, I don't want to stay overnight, I'm not sure if I'll feel comfortable at your mum's house. Which I found kind of strange because it's someone's mum, it's kind of not the thing that you would say. It's low-key rude. But when she got there, the house was really nice and she seemed to be getting on okay with his mum. So she decided, yeah, okay, we can stay. But then talk turned to the wedding. And Yara, just in the couple of days that she's been there, has already decided she doesn't really care for New Orleans. And she said it's kind of like a swamp village. I don't want to have my wedding here. And side note, it did actually make me laugh when Yara said, Jovi, don't wear your shoes in the apartment, people wee on the street. And Jovi actually fixed his mouth to say, people don't wee on the street in America. Jovi, you deserve a Primetime Emmy Award for lying and saying that nobody pees in the street in New Orleans. You know very well that they do. It's Party Town Central. But I digress. Yara thinks that New Orleans is dirty and a swamp village and full of disgusting people, and she wants to go and get married in Las Vegas. So Jovi's mum wasn't having any of this, and she said no, we would like to have all our family here and Jovi's grandparents and so on. And Yara said, well, none of my family will be here, so I think it's only fair that we just have a quiet wedding with nobody here, and just a very small wedding with just Jovi and I. And his mum decided to dig her heels in, and she said, well, let's think about this. I would really like a big family wedding. We're a very close family. That's what I want to happen. But we can all tell now, when Yara digs her heels in, that is it. There is no changing her mind. And she said to Jovi later, why didn't you stand up for me? If I say I don't want to have a big wedding, then I don't want to have a big wedding. What I want, I'll have. And I can tell that Yara's the kind of girl that thinks a wedding is the woman's day. And I think it's just as much the groom's day as the bride's day. Why should his family miss out on the wedding just because her family are missing out? And also, she hasn't seen all of New Orleans, and I think it pretty much goes without saying there's bound to be a picturesque part of New Orleans which she would absolutely love. Somewhere that's free of urine. So I personally think on this argument that Yara is jumping the gun. So the next argument is anger at the apartment. Right from the moment that Yara walked in, she didn't like Jovi's apartment at all. She said it's very small and it was very much like a bachelor pad. And she said straight away, I want to go shopping so we can make it more homely. I want to make sure that I'm comfortable here. So I've got to say this, at first glance I looked at the apartment and I thought it's very basic, but it's very like a bachelor pad. It's absolutely fine. But then immediately I started thinking about Natalie and Mike. And I think that both Natalie and Yara have similar complaints. So Natalie walked into Mike's and she said it's not clean, it's not comfortable, and she felt that he hadn't made any preparation for her coming whatsoever, and I think that Yara felt exactly the same. This was just an apartment for Jovi, with no thought for her in mind, and she said it's not even clean. And I think to some extent Jovi had this one coming. He'd broken a coffee table somehow, but he'd left all the broken parts of the coffee table right in the middle of the living room. So as soon as Yara walked in, she thought, why is there broken furniture here? And I do think that that to some extent displays a certain lack of care. And then also his bike was just in the middle of the living room. And I think he said he'd lost his bicycle lock so he couldn't put it anywhere else. But it really does give it a kind of student dorm type look. And so of course they bickered about this, and I see it from both points of view. Jovi told us, I've rented an apartment in the nicest, safest area of town, it's the most expensive. And also she wanted big windows in the apartment, which he has. And so she hasn't taken any of this into account. But then Jovi taking out the trash and not having bicycles in the middle of the living room and tidying up before she comes might make a better first impression. I would naturally say that you do not walk into somebody's home and start moaning, and not to give excuses where none are necessary, but I think the reason that these women are doing it is because they're over emotional. They've just left all their family and friends and their jobs and everything that they know, and they're starting a new life, and when they walk in, the first thing they think is, wow, all you had to do was tidy and you couldn't even be bothered to do it. It doesn't bode well for the future now, does it? And I guess that's got to be a bitter pill to swallow. And the very next argument was one born out of trying to get the apartment together, the shopping showdown. So this argument made me laugh on many levels. So Yara asked Jovi to go shopping because she wanted to buy a rug and a mirror for the apartment. So they decided to go to a furniture shop downtown and have a look to see what they could get. So when they walked in, they were greeted by the shop assistant, who for want of a better word was a nosy shit stirrer.
Where y'all live? Oh, it's so fancy, so nice.
Yeah, okay. So I could see the shape of things to come when Jovi said jokingly to Yara, come on, learn your English, when she inquired what the word for rug was. And the shop assistant said, no, you cannot be mean like that. There's no excuse for that. Oh my God. What there's no excuse for is your intervention in this conversation. This is your job. Do arguing couples buy stuff? No, they don't. Keep everything nice, smooth and paper over the cracks. Hit that sales target. That's your remit. So Yara wanted a white rug and she found one, but it had kind of silver glittery sparkles in. And Jovi said, no, I don't really like it. And the shop assistant said, why not? We love it. Who's we? Are you living at the apartment? No, you're not. And I think this emboldens and winds Yara up. And Jovi tried to explain, I don't like this rug, I don't want to put it in my apartment. But the shop assistant said, you gotta make her happy. You gotta make her happy. Shop assistant, you have to make a sale. You have to make a sale. That's what you're being paid to do. And so Yara was understandably upset when he said, I'm not putting it in my apartment. And instead of just saying, we have other white rugs over here, maybe you would like this one more, the shop assistant decided to try and force Jovi into buying the rug. Obviously, Jovi then dug his heels in, who wouldn't, and Yara decided to walk out of the store. But instead of trying to calm things down, nosy shop assistant trailed the couple through the store saying,
"You can't call it your apartment. Oh Lord, that's so wrong."
"Oh, shop assistant, you've taken a definite sale and turned it into an empty-handed walkout." And so Yara stands outside of the store and says, "If Jovi's going to be so mean and rude to me, I'm not going to want to get married." The truth be told, Jovi wasn't that rude or mean. I guess he was slightly offhand, but the shop assistant managed to hype the whole thing up and made it sound far worse than it already was.
"If that was my friend, I'd be telling her slow down."
But it isn't your friend, it's a potential customer. So Yara decided to get into the taxi and she said, "I'm not buying anything, let's go." And yet another pointless argument was born. And so the Ebird says to this, "Yara, 1, don't let other people wind you up. 2, men tend not to like glitter. You're going to have to compromise. I know that Jovi did earlier say whatever she wants she gets, but it doesn't mean that he's going to live with glitter on a rug. And shop assistant's boss, fire her, she's bad for business." So I think the following day they went online and ordered a rug they both liked, and a couple of days later the rug came, and Yara was all smiles and she was happy. But I can't help but think these constant arguments are going to eat away at this relationship. But these are all just little tiffs really, compared to the final argument that they have. And so as you know, Jovi's going to spend 25 days away working now, and Yara's going to be on her own in the apartment. And she doesn't know anyone really in New Orleans. And so on Jovi's final night, they decide to go out for a meal, a goodbye meal. And they're sitting in the restaurant and they're talking about their relationship. And Yara's saying, "I don't really want to marry somebody that's going to have a job," which takes him away a month at a time, because "I feel that if I have a baby, I'll be all on my own." And Jovi hit back and said, "You loved my job before. You said it was fantastic. You loved my shift pattern." And she said, "Yeah, that's when I was in the Ukraine and I had my friends and family on the month that I didn't see you." And it seems to me that Jovi absolutely loves his job. And I think it's extremely important for someone to really enjoy their career, because you're at work more than you are anywhere else. Well, apart from the strip club, but we'll get to that later. So I think on this issue, it's something that Yara's going to have to get her head around. But I also think if she did have a child there and settled down, she would get a few friends and she wouldn't feel as isolated. She has to realise now, I've moved countries, I'm making a brand new life, so I can't pretend that I need Jovi with me all the time. So in the restaurant, when Jovi brought up the subject of having children, and Yara said, "Well, I'm not really sure about having a family because you're going to be here for a month and then you're going to be away for a month. How can I bring up a family like this?" And Jovi said, "Well, loads of people that I work with do it." But then she said something far more troubling, and that was when she had a miscarriage. They were in Croatia and she had to have some sort of operation, and Jovi had to go to work, so Jovi flew out and he left her in Croatia to have her operation on her own. And she said, "Now I don't trust you because of what you did," and she was really sobbing and crying and really upset. And I think in some sense something's lost in translation with this argument, because Jovi seemed to think that he wasn't aware she was going to have an operation when he left, and she'd lost her passport, and that's the reason he left her in Croatia. But she said, "No, you knew I had to have an operation, but you left anyway." And obviously we're never really going to know what actually happened, but it's clear that Yara's carrying some sort of resentment towards Jovi for this. And I think to some extent Jovi's quite shocked as well, and he said, "I didn't realise she was carrying so much resentment." This might, and I'm only saying might, be some of the reason why she nitpicks at Jovi all the time, or on the other hand it might just be her personality. But it seems as if she hasn't let this go. And there's definitely a deeper conversation that needs to be had about this scenario. And I think I would say, regardless of whether he knew she had to have an operation or not, he perhaps should have put work off for another week if that were at all possible. Because even just mentally after having a miscarriage, she's not going to be in the greatest of shape. So I guess there's that. But I guess on the other hand, even though he's 29, he seems to be a very young 29, and I think he didn't really necessarily know the consequences of his actions at that point. And that's where we leave the arguments for now. But I feel there's another argument just around the corner, because Jovi left for his 25 days away, and Jovi gave her number to one of his friends, Sara. We'll call her Sara the snitching snake. And Sara invited Yara for a mani-pedi. She said yes, and when Sara picked her up, she took her to a really nice nail place. And Sara tells us she's meeting Yara for the first time, and she says she seems nice, but she doesn't really know her, and she doesn't think that Jovi really knows her as well. So right from the off, I knew that this was a strange thing to say. Yara and Jovi have been travelling for the past year for a month at a time, and they've been all over the world. So I think when you spend a month with somebody on holiday, you get to know them really well, so they have actually spent a lot of quality time together. So I really don't know if it's for Sara to say if she feels Jovi knows her or not. And Sara asks her, do you have plans to start a family right away? And Yara said, well, no, I'd like to open a business first, and maybe if the business goes well, Jovi might be able to come and work at the business and maybe not work 28 days on, 28 days off. And then Sara tells us she thinks it's important that Yara knows Jovi a little bit more. And so she said, are you nervous about marrying Jovi? Do you think he's ready to settle down? And she was firing these questions machine gun-like and not even waiting for answers. And then she set out on the bitchiest monologue I've ever heard. And she said, old Jovi, well, he's out until 3 a.m. He's always getting drunk and having a good time. And usually he can't even remember what happened the night before. And Yara was just looking at her. And she said, how do you feel about strip clubs? How do you feel about strippers? And Yara said, what do you mean strip clubs? Well, what am I supposed to feel? And she said, well, Jovi loves strip clubs and he loves strippers as well. In fact, he goes to strip clubs all the time and he sleeps with all of the strippers there. Oh my God. And good on Yara, because she kept quite a straight face at this point. And she said, oh, well, you know, he didn't tell me. But poor Sara wasn't getting what she wanted. And so she said, have you heard about his ex? His ex peed the bed. She literally went to sleep and weed all over herself. Yep, that's it. She weed on herself. She was so drunk she just didn't know what she was doing. So she weed in the bed. I mean, it's probably not the bed that you're sleeping in. And by that she meant, consider the fact it could be the bed you're sleeping in. But she definitely weed in the bed. Sara took a sip of wine. Being this much of a bitch was thirsty work. And Yara kept her composure quite well. And she said, well, I think he'll change his ways now I'm here. And the whole time Sara was delivering this information, she was watching Yara. And she was at the ready, hoping and waiting to lick up some juicy, yummy Ukrainian tears. Yara was not obliging, but later, to production, she said, I don't know what that girl was trying to do to me. It's so embarrassing what she was saying. And honestly, if I was Jovi, when he finally hears about this, I would cut that girl off dead. I mean, she could have said, yeah, Jovi's a bit of a party boy, or Jovi hasn't had many girlfriends, but why say he goes to the strip club every night and he's slept with all of the strippers? Why say that? Sara, do you know everybody that your boyfriend slept with before he met you? And if you were really so worried about Yara knowing, why didn't you say to Jovi, make sure that you tell her the full truth so she knows what she's getting into? Why did you want to be the one to deliver this? And poor Yara said, I left my country for Jovi and now I don't even know if I know him. And the worst thing about this is, Sara knows very well that he's now away for a month, so she's got a whole month of worrying and wondering and not being able to speak to him face to face. What an awful predicament she's put her in, and she's only been here for 2 weeks. She hasn't even got her family and friends to talk to about it, as they're all in the Ukraine. And that's where we end things for this week. So guys, let me know what you think. Do you think Sara was the worst snake of all time? I can't understand what would make a woman do this to another woman at a time when she's just turned her life upside down to move over. She's just getting to know Jovi in his home environment, and she thought Sara might be some sort of friend that she could hang out with. Not after this. She didn't get a little bit drunk and say too much and think, oh my God, what did I say? They were stone cold sober, sitting having a mani-pedi, and she was chatting all Jovi's business as if she was talking about the weather. And I can't help but think there's a little bit of the green-eyed monster about Sara's attitude towards Yara, because Sara to producers said, I don't know who Yara thinks she is. I don't really think that she can have her own business here. But when I looked into Yara's past, because I wasn't sure what she'd done before, she was a makeup artist and so on, but also she had her own shop back in the Ukraine, so she's already had her own business. What would make you think, Sara, that Yara was incapable of having a business? You don't even know her. Sara, at the very core of her being, is nothing but a biatch, and I'll take no discussion on this. So guys, let me know what you think. Do you think there's an element of the green-eyed monster? Or what do you think Sara's motives were? And then also, do you think that producers have just shown us the arguments mainly and the bickering, and that in between these arguments, these two have a great time and get on really well? I can't help but think they're quite tactile, and there does seem to be a certain element of love and care for each other. And yet again, people are saying, Yara's a gold digger. Yara's tall, she's blonde, she's got a great figure, and she's a very pretty girl. Of course she wants a man of some sort of means. It goes with the territory. But it seems to me that a lot of American men are chomping at the bit to get hold of Ukrainian women. And so I think if Yara just wanted to go to America, which I believe she did, and she only wanted money without love or without caring about the person, she could have gone for a richer, older man. and I think she would have had a very good shot. Again, as with Brandon and Julia, I do think there is a real connection between this couple, and I do see them kind of going further if Jovi can be mature and if she can kind of stop being so relentlessly negative. And also, do you think it's relevant that Jovi used to get his girlfriends doing a supermarket sweep around the strip club? Or should the past be consigned to the past? So yeah, please do let me know what you think in comments down below, and I'll be back very soon with another video. You've been listening to Ebird Online. Please don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for listening, and I bid you good day.